reported as CBC News, Toronto.
继续开始录啊！今天是12月3号，礼拜三早上，8点半多一点，还是从那个央准备上401高速这点开始录。发现这苹果手机这出来了。
A second person was taken into custody. Police say both suspects were treated in hospital for minor injuries. Let's go back to Jennifer Allen for a look at the roads. Southbound John Valley Parkway, south of York Mills, the bus lane is blocked due to a stalled vehicle. Southbound 401 John Valley slow Davis to south of Mulock, approaching Elgin Mills 16th. It's busy to the 407 and past Steeles to the closed Richmond ramp. Also keep in mind that there's long-term construction at the end of the ramp to Lakeshore, reducing Lakeshore to one lane both ways at Dunn Roadway, and it's clear volume especially for westbound Lakeshore past Cawthra as you approach Don Roadway. Westbound 401 delays west of Brock Street to Salem past Nielsen in the Express, approaching Kennedy in the Collectors to Avenue Road, and Keel Express past Weston in the Collectors to Dixon. For the eastbound 401, things get busy past Winston Churchill through Huron, Ontario in the Collectors, east of the 410 to the 427 ramps in the Collectors, the 427 to east of Keel Express and Collectors, and approaching Bayview to Leslie in both the Express and Collectors. Southbound 427 approaching Airport Road, we had a short-lived collision. It's just been cleared. I'm still seeing volume from 407 to approaching that collision at Airport Road, which is now gone. And then beyond that, it's working well to the QEW Gardner ramps. Back to Jill with your forecast.
Well, we're looking at, right now, mostly cloudy skies. -3, wind chill -7. Expect a high of 2 today. 40% chance of showers today and tonight.
Hard to think about outdoor soccer at this point in the year. And yet I see at BMO Field, preparations are fierce now for the FIFA World Cup. They are putting up new stands as we speak, all getting ready for the event, which kicks off literally in June.
If it's reframed in an aspirational positive way. Unfortunately, I think right now, a lot of the people we look to for leadership around masculinity have conflated it with coarseness and cruelty.
The popular podcaster Scott Galloway has a lot of young men in his fan base. He is also the father of 2 young boys, and what he heard from them about the messages they get about what it means to be a man now left him troubled. His new book, Notes on Being a Man, is a manifesto for what he says masculinity could be in 2025. In 30 minutes, Scott Galloway on fatherhood, friendship, the benefits of having a good cry, and why he believes that masculinity can be a positive force in this world. Also this morning, Wheat Kings, how a new flour mill in Alberta is giving farmers the chance to process their grain here in Canada rather than ship it abroad. And later,
it's very devastating when you live in a community that doesn't have a lot of job opportunities and you're finding out that your job is going to end.
1,000 jobs are going to disappear in the Algoma Steel Mill in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. The plant is the largest employer in that northern Ontario city, and the news comes just weeks before Christmas. In an hour, how a trade war has hammered one community and what is next for those workers. But we begin with the wildly popular weight loss drugs that are reshaping everything from what we eat to how we live. Good morning.
就是关门了。现在经济确实不好。
In the past 16 weeks, I've lost just under 25 pounds, which is great. And today I put on a pair of pants that I haven't worn in years. 2 weeks ago, I was 214. Today, I am 208. That means we've officially hit 40 overall.
For a few years now, drugs have been changing the game when it comes to weight loss. For people with obesity, GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic, Mounjaro, and Wegovy have been, in their words, life-changing. This week, the World Health Organization issued drugs are already changing consumer behavior and how that shift is reshaping the economy. But first, I'm joined in studio by Dr. Sanjeev Sokolinga. He's the Scientific Director at Obesity Canada and the Chief Medical Officer at CAMH, the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health in Toronto. He's with me in our Toronto studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you make of the WHO calling for broader access to these drugs?
Well, first off, it's very validating. We've recognized obesity as a chronic disease for over a decade. However, we've been slow to really adopt that into guidelines. I will say Canada is ahead of the curve. Our guidelines have actually recommended GLP-1s and behavioral interventions as part of treatment. And so this is a global recognition of the need for an integrated approach to obesity care.
I was reading in advance of our conversation about the popularity of these drugs. Ozempic is the top-selling drug in this country. How many Canadians are on GLP-1 drugs?
Well, we have North American data, so in Canada a little hard to get some of that data, but I would say the data that we often quote is about 1 in 8 people. This is as of last year. That's probably increased since the last year. And if you look at some of the private insurance data as well, it's somewhere around 1 in 7, 1 in 8 Canadians. But that's really not the vast majority of Canadians who could probably benefit from this.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere close to 10% of Canadians are on it. That's a huge number.
Yes.
Who has these drugs in this country covered by the healthcare system, and who's paying out of pocket for them?
Well, I would say most people would have to pay out of pocket for this because, as you alluded to earlier, the costs of these medications are quite high currently.
How much do they cost for people who don't know?
Anywhere from $400 to $500, give or take.
$400 to $500 per month. Per month.
Yeah.
And you need to take these drugs for life, essentially.
Right. And so the WHO recommendations say chronic disease, so you need to be on these long term as part of chronic disease management.
And so are there any provinces or territories that cover the cost of these drugs?
And no, and that's where there's only one province that actually recognizes obesity as a chronic disease. So to get there to treatment would be another leap, and the cost is a huge barrier.
And is that your sense? I mean, part of this is around cost, but we'll talk about stigma in a moment. But part of this is around cost. That mean, as we always say, the pie is the pie, and they've decided that the pie slices will go somewhere else rather than taking a piece of that for these drugs.
Right. And remember, we're thinking about multiple chronic diseases and medications that people have to be on lifelong or for longer periods of time. And so these costs accumulate for provinces, which I understand. But I think we also have to think about the paradigm shift for obesity, that what happens if we don't treat obesity early on, we might end up getting more chronic diseases, and there's actually data to support that.
So is your expectation that at some point in time, provinces and territories will have to figure out how to cover these, because in the long run, money could be saved?
Absolutely.
That the cost of obesity kind of increases and adds to the bill for healthcare down the line.
Absolutely. We did a study just recently estimating the cost for Canada. It's $27 billion for not treating obesity.
$27 billion.
Yes.
And so could that be cut, you think, if more people have access to these drugs?
So again, I want to be cautious that medications are one pillar of obesity treatment, and we need to make all pillars accessible. So yes, medications being more accessible will be extremely helpful, but we also need behavioral and psychological interventions, and we have metabolic and bariatric surgery for those who need it as well.
The WHO spoke for the need for more affordable versions of these medications in Canada. Not just access to the drugs, but make them cheaper for everybody. And as I said in the introduction, that could soon be a reality in this country. Generic versions are set to be released here as early as next year. What would that mean practically, do you think, for the price? I mean, if you're talking about hundreds of dollars a month, what would that mean if the generics come in?
So again, maybe for listeners, just to clarify, generics are
确实，加拿大这个医疗开支确实比较大。
Canada in terms of bioavailability, they're not compounding, so to make a clear distinction between the two. But generics becoming available it's estimated to reduce the cost by anywhere from 70% of cost reduction. So you can imagine.